All right. Hey YouTube, I'm Lucky, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about a very hot topic, which is skill-based matchmaking coming to Control. And on top of that, there is now as of today, a quitter's penalty when you leave a match. I went and tested it. I loaded into a match and then left the match just to see what it says right here. Oops, you've left a competitive match, which is interesting terminology there. Before it was complete, quitting competitive matches negatively impacts the experience for other players. To stay in good standing with Shaxx the Crucible, please complete your matches, which is odd to call it competitive. Maybe this is just an infographic that Bungie had that they weren't able to change it in time. You'd think that typing some different text out wouldn't cost too much or do too much, but this is what it reads, and this has caused a very interesting point of conversation on Twitter, especially, and elsewhere, of course. So, the first thing I'll say is that everything I read on Twitter seemed overtly negative. Maybe that's just Twitter in general. And I do think that Twitter probably only represents a very small portion of the entire player base. There's probably a good amount of people that actually do like this sort of penalizing quitting inside quick play. The first thing I'll go over are the positives because they're few, and then we'll go over the negatives. So the positives are everyone was complaining about quitting. Bungie referenced in the TWAB that there was a higher percentage of people quitting, and they did mention that they were going to do a quitter's penalty in the TWAB. And it did raise some eyebrows a little bit with that, but overall, we didn't get too much of flack, so they decided to go through with it at this reset right now. Fast forward to now, you see a ton of people hating this, disliking this. Of course, the same people that already dislike skill-based matchmaking are also disliking this because this basically forces you into the matches with skill-based matchmaking. However, if you were having terrible games because you were matching 6v6 and then 3 people quit, so now you have a terrible game because it's a 6v3, well, this does sort of remedy that issue, and that's probably the only positive thing that can be said about this is that at least when you do load into a match now, you're not going to have that painful 6v3 or 3v6 because especially with skill-based matchmaking, if it's you and 2 other people of your similar skill versus 6 people of your similar skill, then you're for sure going to lose that match. In fact, not only are you going to lose that, you're probably going to get stomped the entire match, making it very unfun. And so that's probably the one positive from this that I can gather. If you can come up with some others, feel free to comment down below. The negatives seem to be a little bit more overwhelming, though. One is that if people are quitting because they're having a bad experience, making them stay in is probably not going to help that. I think. I could be wrong. Let me know if you agree or disagree. 2, I think a lot of people are probably leaving because of the map selection in the 6v6 playlist. I'm not a big fan of Cathedral of Dusk. I'm not a big fan of a good handful of the maps that come up when I do play 6v6. I don't really quit the match that often. Maybe if I'm trying to like get a gameplay with a sidearm and I load in on Eternity, I'm like, maybe I'll just requeue into the next match personally, but that's a pretty unique circumstance, right? Like I'm trying to make a YouTube video, I'm trying to get some gameplay with a certain weapon. So if I'm trying to use a long range weapon and then I get a small map or vice versa, sometimes I'll just requeue into a new match so that way I can get a map that's more favorable to that weapon that I'm trying to feature, right? I don't think that most people have that problem though. I think that most people are going into Crucible because they are just trying to have fun, trying to beat bounties, get better at PvP, get ready for trials, get their pinnacle drops. I think those are probably the primary reasons. Let me know if you have any other reasons why you jump into Crucible. And so penalizing people when they are loading in to beat a bounty and they just simply don't like that match and sort of forcing people into playing these maps that they don't like is definitely a big problem. And I can definitely see why some people have some serious backlash. And I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints with that. And the second negative, and this is a big one, is if people are already not enjoying skill-based matchmaking, not enjoying map selections in some regard, forcing them into that would honestly push people away from the game as a whole, right? I could see a lot of people being pushed away. This was something that will only be true with time, of course. We'll have to see and monitor the numbers of the Control playlist and others to see how this actually affects it, because right now we can have a knee-jerk reaction and say that this is a terrible change, and I know a lot of people will agree with that sentiment. I would say it's probably a 75-25 split at least, that they don't like being forced into the matches. I mean, it feels a little bit better to feel free to leave the match without being penalized. This does penalize you in comp and probably would penalize you in trials too, keep that in mind. So basically, if I'm understanding the penalization system, if you leave one match, you get a warning like this. If you leave a second match, you're going to get a 30-minute timeout on that character. So if you're on your Hunter, you can just swap to your Titan and keep playing, and you can swap to your Warlock, and then you can go back to your Hunter after your 30-minute penalty is up. So it's not too harsh of a penalty. You're not really locked out of the game because you rage quit. It kind of just gives you a warning like, hey, don't rage quit matches. It's bad for the other 11 people that were in that match trying to just have a fun game, beat their bounties, or whatever it may be, right? So let me know your thoughts down below. I'm very curious to see what ideas you have, what comments you come up with. And that's a wrap on this one. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Later.